Welcome to the deep dive, where we take the fire hose of source material and distill it down to the critical, actionable knowledge you need. And today we are definitely diving deep. We're looking at the relentless pace of AI we've seen in late 2025, specifically the almost parallel releases of Google's Gemini 3 Pro and Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.5. The tech world is buzzing, but for you, the data engineering professional, the marketing hype doesn't really matter. The real problem we need to solve today is about trust. It's not, can this thing write a haiku? It's, can I trust it with the keys to my deterministic, reliable data pipeline?
Exactly. Can it refactor critical business logic without introducing some catastrophic risk?
That's the question.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to filter out the benchmark warfare and really look at the engineering reality.
Yeah.
We need to analyze the real-world reliability, the true capacity, and most importantly, the architectural implications for anyone managing a system where failure just isn't an option.
We're moving way beyond the polished demos.
Oh yeah, we're asking what actually happens when you point these things at proprietary schemas or, a 10,000-line stored procedure that holds the keys to the kingdom.
All right, let's get into it. The first major battleground, and it's the one everyone's talking about, is the sheer scale of context. Gemini 3 Pro's headline feature is that massive 1 million token context window.
Right. And to put that in perspective, that's 5 times larger than what Claude is offering, which is already a very generous 200,000 tokens.
So this isn't just a slightly bigger number. This feels like a different paradigm.
It is. It's an architectural lever. For the very first time, you can effectively give an AI the entire project in one go.
The whole DBT manifest, legacy code bases.
Everything. The entire history of a data warehouse migration, all in a single unified prompt.
And the economics of that are just, well, they're transformational. Gemini 3 Pro is priced at just $2 per million input tokens.
That's the number that gets everyone's attention. That cost difference is where the conversation gets really serious for any kind of bulk processing.
So what does that look like on a real project?
Well, we saw a really powerful cost comparison. Let's say you're doing a standard metadata enrichment project across, say, 10,000 tables.
Okay, a decent size.
With Gemini 3 Pro, that job runs you about $45.
Mine with Claude.
With Claude Opus 4.5, you're looking at something closer to $100, so more than double.
So if you're looking at enterprise-wide documentation or, generating first-pass drafts for huge schemas, that cost-to-context ratio is just, it's a game changer.
It is, but, and this is the crucial caveat, capacity does not equal comprehension. You can feed it 1 million tokens of context, but if it misunderstands the semantic relationships between all those files, the value just collapses.
So we're moving from how much can it hold to how well does it understand what it's holding?
Precisely. Gemini 3 is fantastic at mechanical structural stuff.
Yeah.
Syntax, formatting, boilerplate code, it nails it. But the sources we reviewed repeatedly show that when you ask it to tackle complex semantic logic, the risk profile just spikes.
So it's almost like a brilliant but very overconfident junior engineer.
That's a perfect analogy.
It knows all the right keywords, but it might miss the business reason why something is done a certain way.
Exactly. And the sources gave us a stunningly relevant example. Imagine you ask it to refactor a massive 5,000-line stored procedure.
Okay.
Gemini will parse it, format it, no problem. But in its attempt to optimize or simplify, it might subtly change something critical. For instance, changing a necessary left join to an inner join.
Oof. Which means you silently start dropping data.
You silently start dropping data. If a key isn't in that second table, the whole row just vanishes from your results.
And that's not a syntax error. That won't fail a build.
No, it's a semantic error. And it's the kind of error that silently corrupts 6 months of historical sales data. And that is a nightmare to unwind. Anyone who's gotten that 4 a.m. data quality alert knows that one misplaced join can ruin a quarter.
That is a very, very real cost. So that leads us directly to reliability, which feels like the piece of the story nobody is talking about.
They're not. Because social media and the marketing focus on these big, impressive success rates.
Like the Gemini 3 number, 88.9% success rate on financial analysis queries.
Right. And that sounds great. In a vacuum, it suggests a really high-performing model.
But when you dig into the full source materials, specifically the omniscience index benchmarking, a much scarier number pops out.
A much scarier number. What happens when the model doesn't know the answer?
The same model exhibits an 88% hallucination rate in scenarios where it should just say, I don't know.
And that is an existential red flag for data professionals. A model that is statistically wired to confidently invent facts that is just fundamentally incompatible with the deterministic production environment.
Okay, let's break that down. In a real-world refactoring job, why is inventing an answer so much worse?
Well, think about tracing dependencies in a big DBT project. If you ask Claude Opus 4.5 to refactor something that it can't find in the context you provided,
What does it do?
it defaults to safety. It'll come back and say, I cannot find the referenced model, or I need more information. It refuses to act on incomplete data. That's what a good senior engineer does.
And Gemini 3 Pro.
Based on these benchmarks, it's statistically far more likely to just invent the missing table. It'll guess the column names based on conventions and then generate perfectly valid SQL that is semantically destructive.
So it doesn't fail, it just generates code based on a complete fantasy.
A confident fantasy. And we saw this reflected in early user reports. There was one quote that just perfectly captured the risk. The user said the model often forgets facts within 3 messages and compensates with confident nonsense.
Confident nonsense, that's the phrase.
It is. For data pros, innovation isn't about speed, it's about stability. A pipeline that hallucinates a where clause isn't innovative, it's a time bomb. It creates data quality issues that cascade downstream. You might not find them for months.
That risk profile makes Gemini a real hazard for any kind of autonomous write operation.
Which leads us right to the next evolution, agentic development.
Right, we're moving past just simple chat-based coding.
We really are. The industry is shifting toward defining a high-level goal, like refactor this entire Airflow DAG, and then having an AI agent plan execute and debug those changes across a dozen files on its own.
And Google's big play here is the anti-gravity IDE. It's a very ambitious vision.
Ambitious, yes.
Okay.
But the early reports we're seeing are messy. The execution seems really difficult in the field.
Yeah, I saw reports that it frequently loses context, or worse, just deletes random lines of code when it tries to simplify something.
And if you have to babysit the agent, you've completely negated the value.
But there's an even bigger problem, isn't there? A security problem.
A critical, non-negotiable security failure. The free preview of anti-gravity offers absolutely no data privacy guarantees.
None.
None. Which means your proprietary schemas, your application code, it might all be used to train future models. For any team handling PII or trade secrets, this is an immediate non-starter. You just can't take that risk.
Okay, so if anti-gravity is the ambitious but flawed web UI, what's Anthropic's counter?
Anthropic's approach is completely different, and it aligns so much better with how data engineers actually work. They live in the terminal.
So they've built their ecosystem around the Model Context Protocol and the Claude Code CLI.
Yes, a command line interface.
Yeah.
And it enables these seamless, terminal-based agentic workflows.
Give us an example. What does that look like?
Okay, imagine your DBT run fails.
Mm.
Instead of copying and pasting huge log files into a browser, you just pipe the failure message directly into the Claude Code CLI.
In the terminal.
In the terminal. The agent then inspects the compiled SQL. It can query your actual data warehouse to understand the data. It diagnoses the root cause and proposes a fix. All right there.
All within your secure, familiar environment.
Exactly. And this is where Claude's steadier nature and focus on first-pass correctness, it often proves cheaper in the long run, even with the higher token cost.
Because you're doing fewer retries, less cleanup.
Fewer retries, less manual cleanup, and it's just better at spotting those weird data engineering edge cases, like how to handle a null timestamp or a missing column in a view.
But let me just play devil's advocate for a second.
Mm-hmm.
If Gemini is 5 times cheaper for the same amount of context, shouldn't we just, I don't know, accept a few more retries and build better error handling around it?
And that's the architectural paradox. You can build layers of defense around Gemini to catch its mistakes. But that overhead, the engineering time, building test suites, the risk of missing one subtle semantic bug, the time spent on manual verification, it quickly eats up all those initial cost savings. For critical logic, paying more upfront for Claude's superior reasoning is actually the fiscally responsible choice. Stability reduces your total cost of ownership.
Okay, that makes sense. But now let's pivot to where Gemini 3 Pro has a genuinely undeniable unique strength, and that's its native multimodal capabilities. This is something Claude just can't do.
It's a whole different ballgame. And we're not talking about generating marketing images. We're talking about using images and video to unlock totally new data workflows.
And the performance is there. It scored 81% on MMMU Pro and almost 88% on Video MMMU, which are complex visual reasoning benchmarks.
And this fundamentally changes how data engineers can interact with design and documentation. It just compresses that journey from an idea to actual infrastructure.
So give us a concrete application.
Okay, the first is what we're calling whiteboard to schema. Think about how data design usually starts. It's a chaotic sketch on a whiteboard.
Right. With arrows and notes everywhere.
Gemini 3 can take a photo of that ERD, that entity relationship diagram, right from the meeting, even if it's blurry, and convert it directly into functional DDL for Snowflake or BigQuery.
So it's reading the handwriting, understanding the relationships, and turning a sketch into deployable code.
Instantly. That is a monumental leap in efficiency. It turns a manual transcription task into an automated first draft.
What's another one?
Visual debugging. We all know logs are essential, but orchestration environments like Airflow are highly visual.
The DAG view, Gantt charts.
Exactly. Gemini can analyze a screenshot of a congested Airflow UI and diagnose bottlenecks in a way that just isn't obvious from sifting through thousands of log lines. It brings visual data into the analytical scope.
And the last one, which I find really intriguing, is the video to run book idea.
This is a huge win for documentation, which is something nobody likes to do.
Tell me about it.
Instead of forcing a senior engineer to spend 2 hours writing a detailed markdown doc, they just record a 5-minute screencast explaining the fix.
And Gemini watches the video.
It ingests the video and generates a structured, high-quality runbook. It pulls out screenshots, lists the steps, provides the code snippets. It just massively lowers the barrier to keeping documentation up to date.
Okay, so we've laid out this pretty complex landscape. On one hand, Gemini 3 Pro, massive context, low cost, amazing multimodal features.
And on the other, Claude Opus 4.5. Superior stability, better security, and more reliable logical reasoning.
So the takeaway here isn't to pick a winner.
No, absolutely not. The critical insight for every data professional listening is that this is now a mandatory requirement for orchestration. You need a bicameral architecture.
Meaning you use both, but for different things.
Exactly. Architectural judgment is now the most critical skill. You have to treat these models like highly specialized tools and assign them tasks that fit their specific risk profile.
So let's draw those lines. Where does Gemini fit, given that 88% hallucination rate?
Use Gemini 3 Pro for bulk, high-volume, read-only tasks.
Like documentation generation, where a bad doc is better than bad data?
Perfect. Use it for initial scans of legacy migration projects, where you can leverage that million-token context to get a first draft of your DBT models. And of course, for all those unique multimodal operations like ERD to code.
And Claude gets all the mission-critical work.
We reserve Claude for where deterministic reasoning and production safety are paramount. Use it for complex SQL generation and refactoring. To the model you trust to act like a senior engineer, the one that can spot that a legacy cursor loop should be rewritten as a window function.
So in a big migration project, you might use both.
That's the optimal approach. Gemini does the first pass, it ingests the whole code base and generates the initial drafts and docs. Then Claude comes in as the reviewer, analyzing the really complex logic blocks and writing the DBT test to guarantee it all works.
So the final verdict is, well, it's nuanced. Gemini 3 Pro has basically commoditized whole project context. It's changed the economics of bulk processing.
It has. But that 88% hallucination rate is a profound structural weakness. It means, for now, Gemini has to be architected with a strict human-in-the-loop for any write operation. It's a tool for reading and documenting the world, not yet for autonomically changing it.
So the real revolution isn't just a better model.
The true revolution is the architectural pattern of chaining these models. We're using Gemini to read the world and Claude to prudently act on it. Mastering that hybrid approach is now the most critical skill you can have.
The future isn't about being replaced by a single AI. It's about augmenting your own skills with a whole suite of specialized agents. Your judgment matters more than ever. And to leave you with a final, provocative thought to explore on your own. If Gemini 3 Pro can now generate a high-quality, structured one-book from a simple 5-minute video, how does that shift the essential time investment for your team?
It moves the focus away from the tedious labor of writing documentation to the much higher value task of simply verifying its initial accuracy.
Think about that seismic shift in your workflow.
Keep digging, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.